Well, today is the time to mark your calendar because it's the deadline for active duty soldiers to get vaccinated against COVID 19 or have a valid exemption. There's one major problem, though. According to the latest Army data, 14,000 soldiers are refusing the vaccines. That number represents about 3% of the U.S. Army. The Pentagon says the alternative for these soldiers holding out on the vaccines is just to get rid of them. Retired General Mick McGuire and current Arizona Senate candidate joins us to discuss the military vaccine mandate. General McGuire, always good to see you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Terrence. Good morning, Jessica. How are you?
Doing well. So there's a basic question that I want to kind of start this conversation with. When you join the military, isn't it understood that you pretty much belong to the U.S. government and you're expected to obey all commands? It doesn't matter what you think?
It is. It is. There are certain individual rights and liberties that are restricted, I would say, as a result of your service in uniform. But one of them is not giving up your legal right to decisions made about your body. We do have a long-standing history of understanding that medical readiness will require some vaccines, but this vaccine is much more analogous to a flu shot. And as I've said before, in my 38 years in uniform, I never adjudicated a case where we discharged somebody for not getting a flu shot.
And General McGuire, my father is a veteran, actually a Vietnam veteran, and he's talked to us a little bit about his time there in the military. And to be honest, I think from many people who've served in the military, many of our veterans, they will tell you they don't have a clue what half of the things the military actually ended up giving them as far as vaccinations and shots. So my question is, have things changed and are people allowed to do religious exemptions, not necessarily for this COVID vaccination, but for other vaccinations that they're given? Or how does that exactly work when you are in the military?
So you can absolutely submit a religious exemption for any myriad of things. I adjudicated exemptions for length of hair for members of the Apache tribe here in Arizona, folks that wanted to wear hijab or turbans. All of these things were adjudicated at the highest levels and were passed through in the name of maintaining good order and discipline. The military requirement for vaccines is about building readiness. And Terrence said in the intro, just the Army alone, 14,000. I saw an article today, 40,000 military members across all services. We cannot lose nearly 3 divisions of soldiers overnight at the same time that we're talking about the problems we see in the Ukraine, Taiwan, and other areas around the world. The message is as incongruent as the idea that Biden is worried about public health when we have a completely open border here in Arizona.
I want to get back to this whole issue of religious exemptions because it really has been a hot button issue. There are lots of lawsuits going on right now against the administration and against the Department of Defense because there are soldiers out there who are saying that they have claimed religious exemptions, but the military is denying those religious exemptions.
Yeah, it's a really chilling problem, Terrence. I saw an article yesterday about a state of New York case where the governor there she claimed that anyone making a religious exemption now should be tossed because the Pope had said that he felt the vaccine was fine. The problem with this kind of statement is that allows us to begin to deify individual statements as opposed to those of faith that believe in something greater than an individual man.
So General McGuire, really quickly, just for some clarification, if previously for another vaccine, not the COVID vaccine, an Army, a soldier, yes, would like to be exempt from the vaccine or just says, I don't want to take that vaccine. What is the steps at that point? Is that soldier allowed to make that decision or do they have to go through an exemption? Are they dismissed? How does that work with a specific vaccine besides this COVID one?
Well, they submit the exemption through the chain of command. It comes up and typically if it's something that requires deployment, they're about to deploy forward into a combat theater and it's a requirement in that theater, they will not be allowed to deploy, but we do not discharge them. If they absolutely refuse and they're required to deploy, then we go through that process. But the problem is that in this case, as I said, this is most analogous to a flu shot. In my time as the commanding general of the Guard, I never had 100% take rate just due to the rotational nature of people being deployed. in and out, drilling one weekend a month, and those types of things. And I just look at, you can't have military readiness framed around medical readiness and lose up to 5% of your force overnight and claim it's about readiness.
General McGuire, just really quickly, in talking to some of your sources still within the armed services, these discharges, are they honorable or dishonorable? Do you know?
They are, as far as I know, the ones that the Air Force just handed down were general characterization, so they are not other than honorable, but they are one step lower than an honorable discharge, and I think that's a terrible way to handle it. The progressive discipline model in the military allows due process for every soldier, but we would have to talk to the individuals who just were discharged this week by the Air Force.